Hello and welcome to tonight's live stream on Facebook and on YouTube. I am super excited to be doing this live stream today. If you are with me on Facebook, I am just about to post a link for our YouTube. So if you have got a YouTube account, please join us on YouTube. However, if you want to stay just watching on Facebook, you are more than welcome. Okay, so welcome. A lot of you are probably looking at the title thinking, women football banned? What's going on? What's happened over COVID-19? Don't panic. Women's football has not been banned. This is history that we're talking about today when the FA banned women's football. Now, I've put a few collections of things together so we can go over the history. Now, why am I bringing this up? Is it because I want to create controversy? I think it's a good thing sometimes to cause controversy. I don't think that's always a bad thing. However, I think history needs to be taught. History needs to be spoken about. And hopefully we get to learn from those. And I think the women's game has really skyrocketed for football. And I would say women's futsal has been neglected. And that's upsetting for me. That's something that I want to put a stop to when it comes to AMF futsal, FEF, and and GB futsal. So I thought, let's go through history. Let's look at the mistakes that have been made, but also, can we learn from history? By banning people is not a good thing. What your current opinion of something is may not be what it is in 50 years' time. And even though there are going to be sheep, people trying to defend it, trying to stick to old traditions, it's important we talk about history. Least we not forget. Yeah? It's really important we do not forget about our history and we learn from it and we move on. Now, a lot of people are going to be thinking, oh, Liam's trying to create problems for the FA. The FA have an article about this on their website. So they don't hide away from it. They don't deny it. However, I think it's important we talk about it. And we also talk about the current people within the FA that are trying to ban AMF futsal and give you a bit of an inkling of why that is wrong. And again, you're going to have your people that are a little bit like sheeps who go, oh, whatever the FA says must be true. We're currently seeing this in America, by the way. You have a black man, which I don't have the notes of his name, so I do apologise. But we recently just saw, I saw it on Instagram with Madonna, where a black man was sadly killed by a police officer. You are still seeing white people in America making excuses. That's not okay. And it's an extreme case. However, what happens when you talk about sexuality, you talk about race, you talk about religion, you talk about agendas and corruption, you have people that just follow the system. And it's wrong. If people do things that's wrong, people need to talk out about it. And it's only when brave people talk out about it, things get changed. And hopefully, you guys will gain a little bit of education and also go, wow, I actually didn't know that. And I'm so glad I learned a little bit about the tradition of things that happen from history. Because no one's history is ever completely squeaky clean. But what is important is whenever we make mistakes, we learn from them. We do not keep making the same mistakes. Okay, so this is not me taking the torch to the FA. This is me highlighting an issue that happened and comparing it to. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I'm not in the way of the sun. Sorry, trying to make sure I am in the way of the sun. trying to prevent them making the same mistakes. And there are certain people in the FA that haven't learned from this mistake, and hopefully this will open people's eyes a little bit. So let's start. And I'm going to start from a personal point of view. The first picture I'm going to show you, some of you may be aware that this is my local town, Yate. Y-A-T-E. It's based in England, in Bristol, and to be even closer to the mark, South Gloucestershire. And I live in this little town here. Now, the picture I'm about to show you came from this book here that's given you loads of unique history about my town, Yate. And when I was looking through this book, what did I come across? This little beauty. So, here is a picture in the book of a women's football team in my little town, Yate. And the date is really important. Ladies football team, late 1930s. Okay, so remember that, 1930s, because that's really important. Yate ladies in men's football gear played football against the Yate men's football team. It's a bit odd, but still very cool. Who were fancy dress. They played on the aerodrome site where B&Q is currently situated. So we've got a massive B&Q in Yate, and this is where the games used to be played. Which, by the way, B&Q, their hire is coming up for lease, and I actually said jokingly before I read this, I wish B&Q could become a futsal centre. Now imagine going back into history and actually having that place that used to be a football pitch and turn it into a futsal court or a futsal arena. That would be so cool. The Yate team captain played in goal for the ladies. All proceeds were given to the Cottage Hospital. Now that's no longer a hospital. However, this is also an important point of why this game went ahead. It was for charity, okay? And that's going to be a very, very big theme in a lot of what happened with women's football and the rise of it all. I'm not going to read the rest because it's basically just letting you know who was who and who's what in the pictures. But this is my little history for you straight away, straight on the bat, of my local town and my women's team. Well, not my personal ladies team, but from my town, Yate ladies. So, brilliant bit of history there. Okay, so just to prove as well that the FA are not frightened from what's being said here, they have this on their website. So have a little look. As you can see very clearly, this is on their website. The history of the women's football in England. Women's football came under the, I don't even know how to pronounce that word, of the FA in 1993, but its history stretches back further. Women's football has a longer history than most people would expect. There were a number of women's clubs in the 1890s, and one in North London was reported to have attracted a 10,000 gate to a game at Crouch End, which I think is Preston. Preston was the stronghold of women's football in its early days, the famous Dick Care's ladies being formed there in 1894 and earning a lot of money for charity. So remember what I said about the Yate, my Yate ladies in my local town? They played in the late 1930s for charity. Their match with St Helens ladies on Boxing Day 1920 had 53,000 inside Goodison Park and thousands locked outside. 53,000 in 1920 for a women's game. The FA banned women's football from its club's grounds, but its view that football was quite unsuitable for females changed towards the end of the 1960s. So that might be in some of your parents' or your grandparents' lifetime. This isn't that far away. The Women's FA, WFA, was formed in 1969, and within 3 years, the first Women's FA Cup final and England's Women International had been played. I'm just going to quickly go on, just check the comments. By the way, welcome to the stream, Jackson. Welcome to the stream, Alejandro. And welcome to the stream, Hadley on Facebook. Okay, let's keep moving. The FA invited the WFA to affiliate on the same basis as the County Association in 1983, and 10 years later established a Women's Football Committee to run the women's game in England. Doncaster Belles were the first winners of the FA Women's Cup. England won their first international under the FA's auspices 10-0 in Slovenia, and the FA began to administer a new FA Women's Premier League with 3 divisions. The FA outlined its plan to develop the women's game from grassroots to elite level in 1997. So again, not very long ago. And in the following year appointed Hope Powell as women's national coach. Now I actually remember her being the manager. Football had become the top participation sport for women and girls in England by 2002. So it didn't take that long, to be honest. And the profile of the women's game was further boosted by the hosting of a major tournament in 2005 and 2012. England's achievement in reaching 1 European final and 2 World Cup quarterfinals, and the launching of the FA Women's Super League. Well, that has been huge, to be fair. And then it just basically goes through the brief history and gives you quite a few different notes about the significant things that happened along their journey. Okay, now I'm not going to go through all of that because actually I've got a video that I would like you to watch that's really good. It's obviously really important to say that I didn't make this video. It was actually made... Oh my goodness me, I've just completely made a boo-boo here. I've not even clicked off my webcam. I totally apologise, guys. Oh, what a... How silly am I? Sorry. Sorry. How... That's my team from Yate. I can't believe I did that. This is why I need a few monitors when I do streaming. You can't actually see the whole photo, which is annoying. But anyway, that's the photo of my Yate ladies. Here's the picture of the FA website. I will scroll through it really quickly. I can't believe I did that. I did that the other day as well, didn't I? Cannot believe I did that. So just to let you know, that is the FA website, and that is what I just read to you just here. And I'm just scrolling down so you can see some of the things that we spoke about. And this is the brief history where it gives you some really iconic moments that happened in all these dates across history, all the way up to date, or in 2019. So... Yate team, FA website, and now we're going on to a really good YouTube clip that I found, and it was posted in 2019 on the 10th of June from Tifo Football, who've actually got loads of subscribers, 738,000 to be exact, which is amazing. However, this video only has 33,400, which, okay, is amazing, but for how important that is, not enough. Okay, let's watch this video because it's very educational.
On Christmas Day 1916, a football match provoked profound change in British society. A team of women from Ulverston Munitions Factory in Cumbria took to the field against a side of female players from the rest of the country, winning 11-5. And the idea caught on. Over the following months, teams emerged from other munitions factories where, in support of the war effort, hundreds of thousands of women were entering the workplace for the first time. Matches were played with the aim of raising money for hospitals and charities for wounded soldiers.
So again, we go back to what we were talking about by charity. It seems to be like a really big theme here.
And initially, the Football Association and the press were both supportive of these games. Though with the praise, unfortunately, also came the publication of letters condemning players for the unmentionable garments they wore on match days. Yet the sport grew exponentially. By September 1917, so many teams had formed that a nationwide league was underway, and the inaugural final of the Munitionettes Cup was played in May 1918 in front of 22,000 people at Ayerson Park.
Okay, so I just want to stop there just for because I do want to make the comparison with futsal at this point. It was the people that made the women's game right now. Nobody, no big organisation, the people. My argument with futsal in the country of Great Britain, the people have made futsal as well. And we've just spoken about here, there was a few teams spotted around here and there, then they eventually get a national league, have their own cup competition, and look at this, on May 1918 they have an attendance of 22,000.
Victory established Blythe Spartans as one of the best sides of the time, and with the sport's burgeoning popularity, landmark fixtures added to the growing momentum. A Christmas Day 1917 match, for instance, which was organised by munitionette Grace Sibbott, drew 10,000 spectators and raised the equivalent of £40,000 for the
£40,000. Wow.
Moore Park VAD Hospital. Prior to these events, the First World War had devastated national sports. The Men's Football League and FA Cup were suspended from 1915 to 19, with clubs under pressure to encourage players to volunteer for military service prior to the advent of conscription in 1916. But now a new game had emerged. With teams cheered on by thousands-strong crowds in Preston, Newcastle, Glasgow, Coventry and other industrial areas across the country, women's football had established itself as the sport of the wartime working class. But the end of the war brought new challenges. In 1919, the government dealt a major blow to women's football through its restoration of the Pre-War Practices Act. Women were forced to leave their factory jobs, decimating most of the teams and scattering their players to different parts of the country. Faced by crisis, Dick Care's ladies acted decisively. Manager Alfred Frankland persuaded the factory owners to guarantee jobs for his players, and Dick Cares had big plans, for which they received the owners' financial backing.
On this point, I think this is really important as well. So, they've come up with their barriers. The government have brought in the Restoration of Pre-War Practices Act. That could have stopped women's football right there, but it didn't. Also, by finding good owners, financial backers, their plan and their ambitions of keeping the sport alive stayed alive. You don't need to be part of a big organisation to do that. You need to make good friendships, good opportunities where the backers get something on the back of it. In this instant, they're getting workers. So, and also I've seen quite a few times people have come over from a different country to come and play futsal, and as part of them getting waged to play for that futsal club, they've joined the business of the owner of that futsal club. So again, tradition seems to be, even now in 2020, is carrying on.
Recognising that the best players from other teams across the country had found themselves in precarious positions, Franklin set about individually recruiting them. For the price of relocation and leaving their families, the players would be given factory jobs and be part of an all-star football team. The result was one of the strongest women's football sides of all time, which included stars like Lily Parr, goalkeeper Annie Hastie and captain Alice Woods. Dick Cares became the dominant side of the era, at their peak attracting as many as 35,000 supporters to their games.
So remember, before the war, 22,000 was their record, and they've just smashed that with 35,000. So they started initially, just starting, barrier hit, build it up again, beat the record.
And their ambition took them even further. From late April to early May 1920, Dick Cares played 4 fixtures against a side drawn from the finest French players of the time. In total, 50,000 spectators witnessed 2 wins and a draw for the home side before the French won a final game 2-1 at Chelsea's Stamford Bridge. France coach Alice Milliet had become a major pioneer for women's sport. And together, these teams brought women's football onto an international stage for the first time. The Stamford Bridge game was even covered by Path News, the newsreel technology innovators whose cameras recorded the game's highlights, ensuring an even broader audience.
What have we been doing in futsal? Streaming. Have we been getting some national press? Yes. Has it just been because of the FA? No. We were on the TV with our C13 World Cup, and we were in every local newspaper of every player that was playing.
By the end of 1920, Dick Cares were popular enough to attract a crowd of 53,000 at Everton's Goodison Park. This followed a year in which they had played almost 30 domestic games, been on a return tour of France, and in December played the first ever football match held under spotlights. Remarkably, their success had been achieved in an extremely turbulent post-war society. In 1919, hundreds of thousands of soldiers returned from the front lines with unparalleled psychological damage from the trench, only to be met with rocketing levels of unemployment and very little state support. There was widespread anger at the government and employers for the terrible conditions, so much so that millions of workers went on strike from 1919 to 1922. Others directed their anger at those they perceived to have taken their jobs, and in 1919, race riots broke out in port cities like Liverpool and Cardiff.
The race riots. Now, I think this is important to mention this as well. How current cultures currently act, it's something that we should never forget. And the reason why we talk about these things is because we want to kick them out the game, and we want to grow as a society. Is race still a big part of sport? Yes. Are they continually to show that history, are we continually showing that we're not learning from history? Yes. I gave you an example of a black man who was murdered by a police officer in America, and it had a race bias to it. And also, we have seen loads of examples over the last year or so, well, actually for years and years, but recently, in the last year, we are still seeing loads of examples of race. However, it's getting better in a lot of the, for example, if you're comparing 1990 when you're talking about race riots, you're still seeing a huge people still having racial hatred, especially when they've taken our jobs and things like that. That seems to be very similar to what's happened in 1919 here. But we have to start learning from history.
Voting rights changed drastically too. The suffragette movement achieved a partial victory when some women were finally granted the right to vote in 1918, while men gained universal suffrage. In other areas, the government maintained reactionary stances, passing legislation against homosexuality in 1921 and actively encouraging women to return to domestic roles occupied in pre-war Britain.
Sexuality has also been a big one that's been brought into sport recently. A lot of people have been changing their views in regards to that. Some people have been starting to be really brave and starting to open out about being, homosexual and everything like that. So it's really important that, again, we learn from history. Just because history used to be like this, we don't have to forget it. We remember it and we learn from it. So we've already discussed about women's football. We've already discussed about race. We've already spoken about sexuality. You have to start learning from history, and people need to start talking out about these things.
1921, women footballers had become the antithesis to this socially conservative atmosphere. They wore shorts, smoked cigarettes, and many cut their hair short, flaunting convention of the time. Further moral panic ensued when it became suspected that women's football teams incubated same-sex relationships. And the success of women's football was also a sore spot for the government. While ex-soldiers in desperate situations were being failed by a lack of state support, women's football stepped up in their place, raising the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of pounds for relief charities. Then, when women's teams began to fundraise for workers during the major 1921 coal strike, the government was undermined to an even greater degree by what increasingly was a force pushing at major social and political boundaries. Resistance got louder. It was claimed that women were unsuitable for football, a view supported by the press, who even published reports from leading doctors providing a contrived medical rationale for such bias.
He uses the word biased. I use the word corruption. The moment you're getting the press and doctors, basically what they're doing is they're trying to put elements of what control the masses, and they're putting them together to create a narrative. That's corruption.
There are strong suggestions too that jealousy was at work. The 1921 FA Cup final had drawn a crowd of 50,018 people, whereas Dick Care's ladies in an exhibition match played a few months earlier attracted a very healthy 53,000. That popularity likely embarrassed the male game. Worse, from their point of view, it threatened male society with another source of female empowerment.
So again, sorry to bring this up, but let's talk about some core themes here. When people feel threatened of what they currently have could be taken away from them, what's their reaction? Is it to go and compete with it? Or is it to be underhanded, corrupt, and try and shut that thing down? Race. People being scared that there's going to be black people around, or a different religion around. Here, right now, the male dominance. They're worried that women are going to take over and be more popular. So in this case, they actually beat the FA Cup final, 50,018 to 53,000. That's embarrassing. And again, what's their response to this?
On the 5th of December 1921, the FA played their trump card, ordering that, on account of those subjective medical opinions and, more vaguely, claims that gate receipts were being misappropriated, its member clubs should no longer allow women's games to take place on their grounds.
Oh, fantastic. Well done, FA. What a fantastic way of creating corruption, which is a very smart thing to do. Because of what doctors have said to us, which we now all know is a load of rubbish, and we're just going to throw in another thing that gives us a little bit more evidence to why we should ban it. Instead of competing on a fair scale of male to female, no, the best thing to do, guys, is to ban it. Sound familiar?
And it was devastating, but it was met by retaliation.
Of course.
In the aftermath, over 30 regional teams gathered in Liverpool and, under the presidency of Leonard Bridget, manager and coach of Stoke Ladies, founded the English Ladies Football Association, the ELFA, with the aim of popularising the game among girls and to assist charity. The ELFA even made provisions to alter the game, making it more suitable for female players. Their proposals included reducing the size of the pitch, playing with a lighter football, eliminating charging and allowing use of hands to protect the face. An exhibition was held under the new laws, with invitations sent to various members of Fleet Street urging them to revise their opinions about the women's game. A further exhibition was held on Boxing Day, to which this time members of the medical profession were invited, giving them the opportunity to reconsider their diagnosis. By 1922, the association members had agreed upon a set of laws for its fledgling association and also devised a structure for its first competition, the English Ladies Football Association Challenge Cup, which Leonard Bridget's Stoke Ladies would win, defeating Doncaster and Bentley 3-1 in front of 2,000 supporters at Cobridge.
2000.
The FA's ban remained hugely detrimental though. Crowds suffered, and players who had previously performed in the same grounds as their male counterparts were consigned to inferior facilities, condemning the game to the shadows and its stars to relative anonymity.
Ooh, does that sound familiar? Is that what's happened with AMF Futsal and GB Futsal? Ostracising them, pushing them away, putting them in a corner to try and suffocate them and eventually try and see if it goes bust or you know, it doesn't, like, if you're not getting the numbers, you're not going to get the newspaper coverage, the TV coverage, the sponsorship and everything else. So instead of going toe to toe fairly, they've been pushed to the shadows, ostracised. For what reason? What, for raising money for charity? For giving women an equal platform? I don't know about you guys, but this makes me angry. And this is not even just from an AMF point of view. This is how I felt before I watched this video. But knowing what women had to go through, this annoys me. And if you then go past history of what certain religions and different skin colours they have to go through, it makes you angry. And it's not until you start looking at it now, looking back how ridiculous some of these views were, it annoys you. But what makes it even more annoying is there's still people making those same mistakes now. They're not educating themselves. They're not educating themselves enough. But the same formula that was designed to stop women football is the same formula being used for AMF Futsal. And guess what? Whatever formula you try and do, ultimately the answer is the same. It's wrong. It's not okay.
Ultimately, starved of funds and restricted by more natural obstacles, the ELFA would barely last a year before folding. And it would be another 50 years before, in 1971, and at UEFA's insistence, the restriction on women's playing rights was lifted. And a further 22 until in 1993, the women's game was able to operate fully under the Football Association's umbrella.
So, Tifo Football, please don't forget to subscribe to their channel. That was an absolutely fantastic video, really, really educational, and really, really enjoyed that. If any of you have got any, questions about what I've said in today's video, please, please, please let me know in the comments below what you thought. And also, what did you learn? Because this part of the stream now, I want to have a discussion with you guys. I want to know what you learned, what your thoughts and your feelings are about what you have just witnessed, what you have just learned, and actually, how does it make you feel? Because I've obviously made my feelings very clear. Like, I think the whole reason why I'm doing a lot of streams at the moment to prove what the AMF Futsal brand is doing for the world of futsal and football is a very good thing, and it needs to be respected more. But also seeing certain mistakes that have been made in the past, unfortunately, a lot of these things are not being progressed enough, and we are not learning from history enough. And funny enough, the same tactics, the same formula that is being used to shut people up, and the treatment to try and shut down people seems to be very, very similar. And I think having this sort of education and this sort of chat is only a good thing. Alejandro, I have gained more football knowledge, and when did women's futsal start? Not football. Off the top of my head, I couldn't potentially give you that answer, if I'm totally honest. Because again, if you're talking about women's futsal, it depends on what format you're talking about and also what country. Now, we obviously know futsal was first played in 1920s. First, like, the rule book was made in 1930s. For me personally, when I look at when things are invented, I don't look at things as they were men or male or female. I like to think that when a sport was created, they were both doing it. So I wish my answer was, yeah, it was 1920 when women started playing futsal. But who knows? Because people don't actually make that very clear whether women or male were playing it at the same time. I would like to think they were, and maybe this is something that I could, after doing this video, could dive into of when the first female match was played and when females were allowed to play. Because remember, this ban was in England, but the other bans of football around the world may be totally different. There's also some countries that will probably still ban football now. Let's make that very clear as well. But yeah, to answer your question, Alejandro, unless something's been very specifically published, which I haven't personally come across, it's impossible to say. But I would like to hope when the first futsal games were being played, it was on both sides. Because all I know is the original game was from AMF, which they used to be called Fifth USA, and right now it's the only futsal organisation that allows World Cups and European Championships and Champions Leagues for females. That doesn't exist in FIFA, even in 2020. So yes, we've made great strides. Well done UEFA for finally telling FA that they have to sort themselves out, and well done to the FA on all the work that they've been doing into the women's game in recent years. However, we have to learn from history, and especially with the treatment of how AMF are being treated, and GB in GB Futsal particularly, how they're being treated by the FA currently. That needs to be addressed, and hopefully sometimes you have to talk about things a little bit more controversially and actually bring up some of the wounds of the past to actually be able to progress with the future. Because yes, it's confrontational about what I'm talking about, however, I have the right to talk about it, and for the sake of not making the same mistakes and allowing more children and more adults playing the sport of AMF futsal and FIFA futsal, it's right to have these discussions and make sure that we are not making the same mistakes that has happened in history. We need to learn from history and we need to move on, and if we can work together, fantastic, but if we can't, at least do not monopolize, do not be corrupt, go in competition fairly. But what happened to the women's game was not fair, it was not just, and it was definitely full of corruption. So I hope that will change a lot of other circumstances, but sadly we're still seeing racism, we're still seeing people being homophobic, we're still seeing some stuff. Hang on, my mum's just passed me something, a second. 1895, the first women's football match, North beat South 7-1. 1920s, the first women international game. Oh, thank you very much. You
probably already know that one.
Yeah, I know that one. My mum's sending me some history about futsal. I already know that. So yeah, we're still seeing people being homophobic, we're still seeing racial abuse happen, and we are still seeing the same patterns of how the women's game was stopped, the same jealousy, the worry of your world being changed and everything like that. It's the same themes. So we need to learn, basically. We need to learn. and having these hard conversations is really, really important. All right, Mario from Mazza Futsal UK. Hi, Liam. What is the issue with AMF and FIFA Futsal? To be honest with you, I'm not a director or anything like that of AMF, so it's difficult for me to 100% say what the issue is, but I can give you an opinion of what I think it is from the outsider. So you had different versions. Sorry. Let me say that again. You had the original futsal being brought into the world in 1930s, yeah? Then there were the original rules is totally different to how we see futsal now. It wasn't even called futsal to start with. It was actually called football de salão, football de salon. I think maybe even football sala. But that might even be a recent interpretation in Spain. But every country calls it slightly different. But it was football de salon. Then FIFA have taken an interest in it. They see it as another version of football, even though there's a hell of a lot of other sports that are influenced in it. You know, your water polos, your hockeys, basketball, handball. Did I say basketball? And obviously football. You combine them in there. There is just as much basketball in futsal as there is football. But obviously, because you're kicking a ball and you kick it into a goal, the most obvious sport that people think straight away is actually football. So obviously FIFA are like, well, we want this sport. This is ours. Da, da, da. They obviously have a chat. I don't want to do dates because, to be honest, you have your people on the internet who claim to be experts anyway, so I'll let them be the experts. They have a sit-down chat, and certain things were agreed, certain things weren't agreed. I think originally FIFA probably wanted AMF to come on board with FIFA and just be like an umbrella underneath them. I think AMF probably wouldn't have taken that very well and said, well, no, we're a sport in our own right. We don't want to be, governed by you type of thing, which is fine. And actually, do you know what? Funny enough, when I have this debate with certain people in England, someone I'm going to be messaging after this, because he's just sent me quite a condescending message already that I'm going to have to reply to, unfortunately. And the kind of tone of the message was, do you not want to impress the FA? Do you think this is going to hurt their feeling? Do you think I care? I don't have anything to do with the FA, so why do you think I'm going to care? I don't. If I provoke them in what I'm saying, then clearly they realise they've made mistakes. I'm not. No, they're not my dad. You know, I look up to my dad. If my dad tells me what to do, then that's cool. If my mum tells me what to do, that's cool. The FA's not my parents. So I don't need to bow down to whatever they do. But I think ultimately the AMF and FIFA route is FIFA has their version, AMF has theirs. And instead of being adults and saying, look, we either work together or we don't. But if we don't, it's fair game. You promote it the best you can, and we promote it the best we can. I've always said FIFA have got so much more money than AMF. So the potential of what FIFA can do is absolutely ridiculous. And players, unfortunately, are going to follow where money is. I ain't got a problem with that. I haven't got a problem with that. If the FA start chucking loads of money and all the clubs and all the players want to do the FA version and not us, that's fine. You've won. You won that one. How am I going to get people to come over? However, you turn around and say, yeah, we're going to ban them if they do it. Come on, grow up. And I think everyone's entitled to compete fairly. If another association starts up tomorrow in England, you have to respect it. And at the end of the day, you go toe to toe, and whoever's better succeeds. When you do things like we've seen in the video with the women, that's not okay. It's not okay. And you need to learn from that. You need to learn from history to stop making these these bad choices, as I call it, and that's me saying it nicely. Thank you very much, Claire and Steve. Well put over Liam. Thank you very much. So yeah, that's basically my view on it. I think we definitely need to learn from history, and I generally don't care about AMF and FIFA's argument. I just want it to be just like supermarkets. I can go and shop in Tesco and I can go and shop in Morrison's and there's no beef. Yes, it's a bit awkward when you go in Tesco with a Morrison's bag. I'm pretty sure everyone's had that situation where you've gone shopping in Tesco and you're like, oh no, I feel like a traitor. I got a Morrison's carrier bag with me. Yeah, Mario from Mazza Futsal UK. It sounds political, which is a shame. Yeah, unfortunately though, every sport's like that. Even most friendships are like that as well, to be honest. But yeah, like I said, just on a light-hearted note, I just want futsal to be like supermarkets. I want to go in Tesco and I want to be able to go and shop in Morrison's. And ultimately, the moment someone tells me that I can't shop at either of them, then I don't shop at I don't shop at the one that's telling me that I can't do it, because ultimately you're not my parents. My parents tell me what to do, but you don't tell me what to do. That's not right. That's corruption. That's trying to play a monopoly. And ultimately, if you're good at what you do, you don't fear competition. You actually thrive it, and competition is actually what makes things really, really popular. And yeah, it's a bit ironic, isn't it? In sport, you don't want competition. No competition, no sport. As far as I'm concerned, it's the same as drama. No conflict, no drama. No sport, no competition, no sport. So yeah, it's a bit ironic, really. You want to be a sport organisation, but you don't want competition. Anyway, thank you so much for everyone that came today. I hope you enjoyed the education that we delivered today. Like I said, I really don't care what method that you guys have. However, the culture around all of it needs to be an open playing field. We should not ban people just because it doesn't fit our agenda. I am not going to be banning people because it doesn't fit my agenda. Ultimately, it's an open playing field. It's competition, so we do that. Have a fantastic evening, everybody. Training tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Then I didn't do the Coutinho one yesterday, so I'm going to actually combine all of them. Coutinho, Falcao, and Maradona, all in one stream. Tomorrow is stretching at 4 o'clock, and then in the evening it's Coutinho, Maradona, and Falcao. And as of Monday, one-to-one training resumes. So, it's all exciting. There's more stuff on the way. Have a fantastic evening, guys. Let's go!